Alright everyone, welcome to Deep Dives with Dogs. Well, today's topic is about kind of the start of the American Revolutionary War, how it goes from more of a civil-like war, I mean that's really how it starts. It starts more of as like a civil war, and how it goes into being more of a war for independence, which is really what it should be called today. Revolutionary War, not necessarily incorrect, but war for independence is a little bit more correct. Let's just go with that. But yeah, let's just get into it. So the war doesn't necessarily start, like I said, as a war for independence. A lot of the colonists believed themselves still to be English, still to be part of the British, under the British rule, and they wanted to be Englishmen. George Washington is a good example, very prominent member of this, and he thought of himself as still as English. He did not believe that they should break away from the king. They send a letter to the king saying, "Hey, it's like this last olive branch. It's called the Olive Branch Petition. It basically reaches out to the king and says, hey, King George, we are your loyal servants. We have been. You have been misled." This was very common for this time, and a little bit even before, or quite a bit even before this. You would say to the king, "Hey, we're followers of you," because if you weren't, it was treason. But if you were just followers of the king, and the king's just being misled, that's all. That was fine. You just say, "Oh, that's fine." But they send in this olive branch petition to the king, and they say, "Hey, we are your loyal servants. Please, give us this or that, And the king says, "Screw you. Anyone that's part of the Continental Congress will be jailed and then summarily executed for treason." So they say, "Okay, well, we can't really do that." So they go, "Hey, let's try this independence thing." It was something that had been talked about by certain people. Samuel Adams, pretty good example, that he wanted independence. The Sons of Liberty, what he was part of, they wanted independence since the beginning. But now it's actually coming into fruition. So they kind of talk about this, and they're like, "Okay, well, we're gonna do it. So they get very famous writers, not really famous writers, but they get Thomas Jefferson. I believe James Madison also worked on it as well, and one other person who I can't remember, and I feel bad for not remembering this, but to write the Declaration of Independence. The bulk writer for it, so the person who wrote the most, is Thomas Jefferson. He wrote the most for the Declaration of Independence. Declaration gets a little bit gets started signing early on, and it takes a little bit. It does not get all signed at one time. Just how things worked in the day, you have fastest mode of transportation is boat or horse. You have to go on horse. So a lot of delegates come from all the colonies. It's quite a distance. So you're going to have some people that take a little bit longer than others. And finally, the day has come. It's July. Most Americans know that. July the 4th, right? No, July the 2nd, actually. The last delegate to sign, the pivotal. I keep saying pivotal. You guys are going to notice it in all my videos now. If I keep saying pivotal, you just know now. But the pivotal signing by, I think it's Casey Rodney. This is the guy's name. The delegate from Delaware signs the Declaration after a long, all-night ride. Signs the Declaration July the 2nd. Look at that. July the 2nd, it's signed. It's amazing. Thomas Jefferson and John Adams, they kind of celebrate. John Adams says this will be the most celebrated day in American history. 2 days later, the Continental Congress approves the Declaration of Independence, and July the 4th becomes the most important day in American history. Just a little funny how that works. John Adams isn't technically wrong. July 2nd, very important, probably the most important. Obviously, it's when it all gets signed, but doesn't go into effect till 2 days later. So it's not necessarily as important, you know. It's not in effect. Sure, everyone signed it, but it's not in effect yet. And this is where the war no longer becomes this kind of civil war that it was at the beginning, to now more of a war for independence. And it'll be a decently long conflict. Not the longest by any means, but and it will have obviously the Americans coming out victorious with a lot of help from the French, the Dutch, and the Germans. Or the Prussians, sorry. Prussians. Gotta be more specific there. But that is going to do it for this video. If you guys liked the video, leave a like. If you have any ways I can improve on these videos, leave a comment down below. I always appreciate your feedback. And as always, subscribe. It really does help out the channel. Thank you.